Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Off the Iron. It's the Goodwin brothers, Adam
and Evan,
back at it with another episode. It's been a while. It's been a couple weeks. We apologize for the delay, but mid to late February is usually a pretty busy month for our family. We'll get into why, but welcome back, everyone. Just a quick reminder before we get started here that Off the Iron podcast is brought to you by Rocky Mountain Barbecue Catering. Stop by their storefront, pick yourself up a lunch combo with any one of their signature smoked meat, sausages, or burgers with 2 sides and a drink for just $12, including the new Hickory Deluxe Burger. Does that sound appealing, Evan?
It does.
Well, let me tell you about it. It's got a little crusty cheese, mac and cheese patty on top of a hickory smoked burger with some smoked bacon. All the fixings.
Yum.
Brioche bun. Does that sound like a hit spot?
Yeah, definitely will hit more than one spot for sure. So is that the same one that you guys had on special?
Yes, it was. It is on the full-time menu now. And of course, we are open 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. on weekdays. Visit us at 5303 68th Avenue Southeast, Calgary. But yes, it's been selling like hotcakes. That's for sure.
Nice. Good stuff. Yeah, it looked delicious. I've seen pictures of it posted on social media too, and it definitely looked yummy.
Speaking of social media, visit us on our social medias. You'll see some of Rocky Mountain Barbecue Catering's posts on our Instagram. Shared one to our Instagram today for Taco Tuesday tomorrow. So that is at Off the Iron Podcast on Instagram, on Twitter at Off the Iron Pod, as well as on Facebook and YouTube. Just put in Off the Iron Podcast will be the first result. And then our Gmail, offtheironpodcast@gmail.com. Email us any feedback, suggestions on topics, whatever comes to mind, and we'll be sure to get to it. But yeah, that's it. You want to do a little bit of a rundown of what we're going to be talking about today, or how your last couple weeks have been?
Last couple of weeks have been pretty quiet for me, to be honest. Just quarantining, staying at home whenever possible. Not much really to do. Like Adam alluded to, in our family, February is a pretty busy month. We have our mother's birthday, our grandmother's birthday, my wife's birthday, Valentine's Day. So there's quite a bit of family events and that have happened. We're keeping it pretty low key though this year because we can't really do much. But other than that, all I've been doing is recording a little music on the recording studio down here in the basement that we're recording this podcast on as well. And you might notice some new intro music for the podcast this time. That is recorded by yours truly. That's one of the blues tunes that I wrote actually 2 weekends ago now. So curious to get your feedback on it if you want to submit anything to our social media channels about it. But hope you enjoy our new theme music. We'll be switching it up from time to time, and just hope you like it.
Yeah, we'll have to see what you write next. That one was definitely a little bluesy. Maybe
a little Black Keys vibe-ish. That was the inspiration for that one, and another band that I just discovered actually last month, Rival Sons, which are another blues-focused garage rock band with an interesting kind of bluesy vintage tone vibe to them too. So that's kind of what inspired it and got down here writing. And actually, first time I've done that in a long time. It felt really good. But we're recording this episode, back to hockey, I guess now. We're recording this episode on March 1st at around 8:30 in the evening. So just after the Flames finished getting their asses kicked by the Ottawa Senators for the second time in 4 days. So we will be, of course, starting everything out with our Flames Focus section, as this is a Flames first podcast. Adam and I are huge Flames fans, as people who listen know. So we'll be talking about the Flames and the dreadful stretch they've been on lately. And of course, focusing on the lack of our number one goalie in our lineup right now. After that, we'll dive around the North Division, talk about some of the storylines there, in particular Montreal and their coaching change that just happened a few days ago. Then we're going to flash around the league for highlight a few of the stories going on right now. Main story going on right now is the absolute mess in Buffalo and what they're going to do, what's going on there, that sort of thing. So we'll touch on that. Is there a fire sale in Nashville? Are the Preds looking to get rid of a few of their key pieces? We'll touch on that as well. Also, what the hell is going on with Jordan Binnington? We'll touch on that as well. And a certain milestone for Patrick Kane was reached this week as well. So to finish off the episode, we're going into our OTI top 5 segment like we have done in the past 3 or 4 episodes here. And this week we have top 5 favorite cliches in hockey. So, all those interview cliches that all the hockey players say when they don't know how to answer questions to the media in their post-game interviews. So we'll be talking about our favorite one-liner cliches at the end of this episode.
Yeah, so they always seem to be the cliches you hear in hockey most, specifically. Yeah, exactly. Hockey players are sometimes, or most of the time, very boring when it comes to interviews. And you hear some real gems in terms of cliches. So can't wait to get into that later. But sorry for interrupting. You're about to say something there.
I was just going to say, let's just dive right into the Flames focus.
All right. Well, what to say about an absolutely miserable stretch for the Calgary Flames? You thought it couldn't get worse after that Thursday game against Ottawa, in which they lost 7-1 or 6-1. Sorry. They did follow it up with a big win on Saturday, only to follow it up with another miserable performance tonight against the Ottawa Senators, a 5-1 loss in the end. Just good old-fashioned Flames hockey, am I right? Just one step forward, 3 steps back.
Yeah, it's and we're almost halfway through the season now in this shortened season, and I don't think we can expect this team to turn it around. They haven't proven otherwise. So just to recap some of the results. So that's within a week and a few days, that's a 7-1 loss to the Oilers in which the whole team never even showed up. Followed by a 3-0 shutout of the number 1 team in the division, Toronto. Followed by a close 2-1 loss to Toronto, which, to be honest, the only reason they had any chance of a point in that game was David Roenick standing on his head. Followed up by an absolute drubbing by Ottawa, 6-1 we lost, which resulted in Roenick smashing his head against a door when he got pulled from that game. So that was an interesting look into the psyche of the Flames team right now. And then they bounced back on Saturday. It was one of their most complete games that they'd played all year. They won 6-3. All 3 Ottawa goals were on the power play. Pretty nice goals. And then they followed it up with this stinker that just happened today, a 5-1 loss to Ottawa. So that's not a very good stretch of hockey. And I forgot to highlight just before the 7-1 loss to Edmonton, they also got their asses kicked by Vancouver 5-1. So, not a very good, impressive stretch of hockey for Flames fans out there or the Flames team. What are your takes on it, Adam?
So there's at least 3 or 4 very concerning losses in this stretch. The 2-1 game against Edmonton on the 19th. Did they deserve to win? No, but it's only 2-1. It's still a closely contested game. The 7-1 game against Edmonton. I mean, McDavid just goes off. Like that's just, I mean, they have to do better, obviously, but when McDavid's playing on that level, they're going to be hard to beat, the Oilers. I'm not giving them a pass for that at all. I'm just saying that's just like video game stuff that we saw from him.
Yeah, there's not a lot of teams that would have had an answer for that. Like McDavid just took over that game.
Exactly. And then the 5-1 loss to Vancouver, very, very concerning. And then obviously the most concerning one of all, the 6-1 drubbing and the 5-1 drubbing to the lowly Ottawa Senators, the dead last in the North Division Ottawa Senators. The 2 games against Toronto, I mean, I actually thought they got outplayed in both games. The 3-0 win, I thought they were fortunate to be up 3-0. I thought Roenick was dominant in both games, as I'm sure Leafs fans will tell you about. They were he seems to always show up against the Leafs. I know the past 2 visits to Toronto have been very good for David Roenick before these 2 games, which is nice to see that he's bounced back after obviously not playing for a long time, and then that very brief and uneventful relief appearance in the playoffs last year.
That wasn't his fault, though. He shouldn't even been in that game.
Exactly, and just an impossible situation to be in. And then, but he's finally looked like he's back to being what we expect of him, being a very capable backup and can steal a game once in a while, which is what he did in Toronto. Obviously, the second Toronto game was very disappointing. They almost snuck out that 1-0 victory. Obviously, there's a bit of controversy about the tying goal in that game. I myself personally, I know I'm probably going to get a disagreement here from you because you're the goalie. I don't believe that was goaltender interference at all. I mean, Zach Hyman is in the crease, but the NHL rules allow for players to be in the crease a little bit. And
a little bit. He was in the middle of the crease.
Yeah, I shouldn't have said a little bit. He was in the crease fully. But in my opinion, I just don't believe he actually stopped Roenick from making the save, because the puck was outside of the crease and it just gets poked by Nylander and it just slides along the ice into the net. Very unfortunate, obviously, but I don't think there would have been enough evidence there to overturn the call. So a lot of people were up in arms about, #fire award. How can you not challenge that? Do you want to give Toronto a 2-minute power play in the last minute of regulation and overtime there has to be enough evidence to overturn the call. And I just didn't see that. So what were your thoughts on that whole situation?
I'm goalie, so I have a different opinion on that. I think it was goalie interference, because when you have someone standing in the middle of the crease where you should be, obviously you can't get there. So he didn't provide a lot of interference, but he is literally standing in the middle of the blue paint. We're not talking about a skate that's just in the blue paint. Both feet firmly planted and stick all in the blue paint. So that to me is goaltender interference. But I'm glad Jeff Ward didn't challenge that, because the last thing you want to do is give the Leafs a power play, especially that power play, for the last 45 seconds of the game. You might end up not even getting a point out of that game. So I think he made the right call there.
And I think just before you go on here, the one problem is that the NHL rulebook allows for that to happen. If in international hockey, that's blown dead immediately. That type of play, like with the player in the crease like that. But unfortunately, in the NHL rule books, they allow the players to be in the crease to an extent, as long as they're not on top of the goalie or whatever, you know what I mean? But it would have been tough to get enough evidence to overturn that. But I agree. I think it should be goaltender interference, like 100%. But with the NHL rulebook the way it is, it's just they allow some crease contact, I guess you could say.
That's the problem with officiating in the rulebook. There's the only thing that's more inconsistent than Flames hockey is NHL rule interpretation. So like you just seen Brendan Gallagher off the Canadiens. Similar situation, although he did really make contact with the goalie, but was knocked flat on his ass, got up, tipped the shot, and then still got called for goaltender interference. And he wasn't even in the blue paint. So there's so much gray area around there.
Yeah,
they really did open up. They really did open up the officiating crew. Like, I don't know who has the ultimate call there, if it's Toronto or if it's the officials on the ice. But I thought if a goal was in the last well, no, never mind. I'm confusing football rules and hockey rules. I was going to say within the last 2 minutes of the period that it was automatically reviewed or whatever.
I think that's the case with goals in the final minute and in overtime, but that one was just outside of the final minute. So I think that wasn't automatically reviewable by the league office, but
whatever.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have mattered anyways.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as soon as Sam Bennett and Lindholm hit that post, because I mean, Sam Bennett's got fucking hands of stone. So like I knew it was going to come back and bite us. I just knew. I turned to Lindsay, my wife, beside me. I'm like, we're going to lose this game. Watch.
Yeah.
And sure enough, 20 seconds later, they score. And then, you know, a minute into overtime, Nylander comes in with a beautiful move and absolutely undresses Monahan and pops it in there. But I don't want to focus too much on the Leafs games. At least they were competitive with the number one team in the NHL, to be honest.
They showed some compete level. That was nice.
It's a symptom of the Flames. They play to their competition, which is the worst way to go about playing hockey. Because you can elevate your game, sure, for the tough teams. And they did this last year, too. They always played Vegas tough at home, not in Vegas. That's a different story. They always play the Oilers tough, usually, and things like that. But then they always lose the Red Wings or, you know, teams that have no business beating
Buffalo.
Because they play down to the other team's level. They don't dictate the play. They react to the play. The pace of play and the tempo of the game. They don't dictate it. They never have, and they never will. They're just, to be honest, I'm a hardcore Flames fan, and I have turned off 5 out of the last 6 games because I could not stand watching them, and that's not good. When this is supposed to be your quote unquote window, that's not good.
Yeah. And I think another way to put it as well is they're not good enough to take more than 10 minutes off in a game.
No.
You know, you hear the one of the cliches, you got to play full 60 minutes. Might hear that one later. I don't know. But they're not good enough to take a period off or 2 periods off. We're not the Tampa Bay Lightning. We don't have Kucherov and Stamkos and Braden Point, 3 of the elite offensive players in the NHL. We can't just turn it on for a period and win. You can't spot teams 2-goal leads in the first 5 minutes of games and expect to win. Even tonight, like the first period, like their start was okay, but they fell asleep for the first 5 minutes of the second period. They're down 2-0. And then another symptom of Flames hockey, getting back into the game with a goal, 2-1. Milan Lucic scores the 6th of the season to make it 2-1.
I did not think Lucic was going to get 6 goals this year.
Shortly after Ottawa scored to make it 2-0. And then within a couple minutes right after, it's 3-1. Just lack of, I don't know what it is, lack of focus, just lack of effort after you think you're back in the game at 2-1. Then it's 3-1. And then David Rittich puts an absolute pizza up the middle of the ice. I don't know if you've seen that goal, Evan.
Yeah, I did see that goal on the highlights.
Yeah, just plays the puck right to, I think it was Drake Batherson, and Batherson puts it in. Then it's 4-1. I mean, that's just completely deflating, but that was already after the 3-1 goal. So it's just too many inconsistencies in, not even in period to period and shift to shift, which is just mind blowing right now. And especially tonight's game, I was especially disappointed in because they did change up the lines for the Saturday game. They went back to kind of old reliable with Gaudreau, Monahan, and Lindholm on the top, and then Tkachuk, Backlund, and Mangiapane on the second line, the 3M line, 2.0 as we're calling it. But just reverted right back to old habits tonight, and just not good enough, plain and simple.
Yeah, it's just our team's not good enough. We're not. I think we got to stop kidding ourselves. We're not built for success. And I really do think, I know the Flames have been through a lot of coaches in the last 4 or 5 years. I mean, they've had Hartley, they've had Bill Peters, they've had, who was the other guy? Gulson, thank you. And now they've had Ward. But there's something different that's going on this year than previous years. I really do think that this is a team that has quit on their coach. I really do. Or the coach is not experienced enough to make the right decisions and the right adjustments mid-game. But I think a lot of the blame also falls on Treliving. They keep saying every single year, we want to be a tough team to play against. We want to get in there. We want to hit people. We want to do this. We want to do that. We want to be physical. We want to be hard to play against. Well, guess fucking what? You don't have a single person on your goddamn team that plays that way. If you're gonna have that quote unquote identity, then you have to have the right players on your team to live up to that identity. You think Monahan, Gaudreau, Lindholm, Dubé, they're not going to get in there and be the first guy in there and bang and crash. That's not how they play the fucking game. So you can't force an identity on team and players that are not that's not how they play hockey. You have to play or adjust your strategy and your identity to the team that you have. You have a skilled team that when they're on are one of the best transition games out there. You need to skate pucks in with skill at the blue line, not dump and chase and go bang and crash, because as soon as you dump and chase, guess what? Gaudreau's not going to be the first person to that puck. Monahan's not going to be the first person to that puck. The only people that play the way that their quote-unquote Calgary Flames hockey identity is Tkachuk, Mangiapane, and maybe some of the fourth liners that bang and crash out there for like 3 minutes a game. Other than that, we're not a fucking bang and crash team. We never have been. So why are we playing that way?
And I'm glad you brought this up because I actually just saw this today on Twitter. The boys at In the Dome podcast put out a tweet quoting some stats from Haley Salvian's article, who's the beat writer for the Flames for The Athletic. From Haley's article in The Athletic, on average, the team carried the puck into the zone 53% of the time in 2018-19, which was the fourth highest rate in the league that year. And what happened? The Flames were first in the division, first in the conference, best in the West, as they said. But that dropped to 46.5% in 1920, which was last season, which ranked in the league's bottom. And I can only imagine that number has dropped even lower this year because that's what we're seeing. We're not seeing zone entries. I know the Twitter account called Flashalytics, Flames fan who's really deep into analytics, is tracking zone exits and whether they're successful or unsuccessful, and if they led to sustained ozone pressure. And let's just say, because I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, not good. Their zone exit percentage is not good. And it's just one of the things that they're struggling with identity. They're not a dump and chase team. They shouldn't be. On paper, with the names and the skill, they should be a top three division in this or top three team in this division. But they're just not playing like it, and they're not being coached the proper way to go that way. I don't think Ward's the whole issue with this team. We've seen it in years past with other coaches, but he's definitely contributing to the problem. There's no doubt about it with his deployment, some of his combinations. But don't kid yourselves. He's not the only reason we're struggling right now.
No, I mean, there's lots of reasons. I really do think that Sam Bennett has no fucking place in that locker room anymore. Wanting a request out and then all of a sudden gets promoted to the first line based on nothing of merit. What kind of message do you think that sends to the rest of your teammates? He needs to fucking be parked on the pine because he can't do anything right now. And he wouldn't even be a Flame right now if anybody wanted him. So obviously nobody wants Sam Bennett or else he'd be gone. I know the Flames won't want to give him away, but there's nobody out there. Sam Bennett is who he is. He's never going to be a top six forward. He's likely very rarely going to be a top nine forward because he can't handle the puck. He can't catch a pass. He skates too fast for his own good, and his hands don't keep up with him. So putting him with Gaudreau and Monahan is boneheaded. I don't know why they do that. They need to find someone that can play on the right side of those guys. And that someone, unfortunately, is Lindholm. I know they wanted to slot him to center and build up the center depth, but sorry.
Yeah.
Honestly, you should have signed a right winger in the offseason instead of some of the moves that you made. That probably would have had better results. But
and we heard Rhett Warner talk about this on the morning show last week, I think it was. It just creates a distraction. And I know, you know, you can come out in the media and, oh, no, it's not a distraction at all. We love having him here, blah, blah, blah. It creates a distraction, especially when he, like you said, he requests the trade, gets healthy scratch, then he's up to the top line. Like, it must be like
what kind
puzzling.
of message do you think that sends to the third and fourth liners?
Exactly. And it's just, it's, I mean, they're obviously getting asked about it almost every night. And it just creates division, I think. It's a divided locker room right now. It just has to be. They don't look like they're playing for each other. They don't look like they care for each other. I mean, some of the efforts on the goals tonight, I mean, Backlund was an absolute passenger tonight. Backlund, Noah Hannafin made some terrible decisions, despite he's been relatively consistent this year. But, you know, if you want a guy who's good, pretty good defensively, has been this year anyway, but has made some boneheaded moves in the offensive zone. I know a guy. All right. I don't know if you caught the pun in there, but it's Noah Hannafin. I know a guy. But I don't want to rip on Hannafin too much because he's far from the Flames' biggest issue right now. But it's just an absolutely miserable stretch, and time, I think the best way to put it right now is time is running out for this team.
Yeah, I mean, we are where we are. We're past the quote-unquote American Thanksgiving, 25% way through the season. That was several games ago, and we're near the bottom of the division. We're right where we are. Like, our play is, we're right there. I'm sorry, if you lose 2 out of 3 games getting drubbed by the last place team, I don't know if they're in the NHL. Oh, no, they're in the NHL, the last place team, I'm pretty sure. Detroit has more points than them.
Well, Buffalo, actually, they're by points because of the win tonight. They're fourth last, but Dallas has 16 points, but they have 8 games in hand. Buffalo has 5 games in hand, and San Jose has 6 games in hand. So they're last place, not technically, but they will be.
Yeah. So I mean, that can't happen. I mean, we were talking about in previous episodes that, you know, in this 5-game stretch against Ottawa, it's not consistent stretch, but almost. You have to take 4 out of 5 games. There's no question, because every other team above you is doing that with Ottawa. You know, Ottawa will get 1 or 2 every once in a while, which they have already, but they're 1-goal games with everyone else. No one has been blown out by fucking Ottawa this year, except for Calgary.
Yeah. And the only other time that we've seen a team get really embarrassed by Ottawa was Toronto in that comeback win. It was 5-1 Toronto, and then they just kind of went the old snoozy town there at the end of the second period. And Ottawa, they have enough talent to come back. They're an NHL team. If you play like shit, they're gonna make you look silly, and they did for Toronto, and then obviously against Calgary for 2 games. So I don't know if you have anything else on the Flames, or if you want to move into, because we kind of get into talking about the standings for the North Division, maybe move on. Like, the one thing I want to point out right now is the Flames are 5th still. They're still ahead of Vancouver, which is nice, I guess, but
not by much.
Yeah, I know. They're only 1 point behind Montreal, but Montreal has 3 games in hand. And we're 5 points behind Winnipeg for 3rd, and Winnipeg has 3 games in hand, and Edmonton is 6 points ahead. We played the same amount of games with them. So they're not out of it by any means, but they have to turn around like Thursday against Ottawa. Like, if they're going to make the playoffs, they have to start doing it against Ottawa on Thursday.
Yeah, there was a few points that I wanted to make before moving on from the Flames. One was offensive zone entries and carrying the puck as opposed to dumping and chasing. We saw exactly how that affected the team when they did that in the second game versus Ottawa. There was 2 or 3 goals generated off of carrying the puck across the blue line. Now, Ottawa was giving us that. Like other teams take that away, but you have to be able to adjust there. But skill across the blue line, finding the open man, and bearing the chance. That got 3 out of the 6 goals against Ottawa when we actually showed up against Ottawa. So that was point number 1. Point number 2 I wanted to make was that the team is not built to play bang and crash hockey, and it never has been. But that's an illusion that should have been thrown out the window as soon as Daryl Sutter left his fucking organization, because Calgary Flames hockey, although we have that reputation, our team's not built that way, and it hasn't been for several years. So we need to just throw that by the wayside. Number 3 was, who is responsible on the Flames for the defensive zone structure and system we're playing in the defensive zone? Is that Ward, or do they have a defensive coach? I know they have a D coach, of course.
Well, Ryan Huska is the D coach. I don't know if it all falls on him, but we have given up the 6th most goals in the NHL this year. Ottawa's first by far at 92. And then we're down here in 6th with 70 allowed. We have a -11 goal differential. So we're down there with the likes of Detroit, Vancouver, and San Jose.
Yeah, I know. And that's what I'm saying. Newsflash to whoever is coming up with a defensive strategy for Calgary, fucking change it up, because it ain't working. There are holes all over the place. You got to come up with a different strategy, because guys are missing assignments. They're not bought into the system that we're playing. And I know that's accountability on the players, but you have to change it up, because if you continue to hammer home and try and stick to the system, to a system that's not working, and guys are wide open all over the place, we're not going to get any better. You have to change the defensive strategy. Because case in point, I can't remember what it was, our last home game, whatever game that was. I think it was versus the Oilers, the 2-1 game.
The 7-1 game. Oh no, that one was in Edmonton. Sorry. Yeah, the 2-1 game. Yeah.
There was a goal against that was so telling of the Flames hockey, and I just wanted to bring it up. I can't remember what goal it was or who scored it, but there was one opposing player in the corner, one player in front of the net, 5 Calgary Flames members deep in the D zone, and not a single person picked up the guy in front of the net. One pass to the guy in front in the net.
Yeah, I think that was the Puljujärvi goal that you're talking about there. Like you said, case in point, just not enough commitment to being better in the defensive zone. And they seem to get caught puck watching an awful lot.
Because they're thinking about where they're supposed to be in a shitty system. I think is what it is. They're not bought into the coaching defensive system or structure that they put in place. Because you can tell they're second guessing themselves instead of just reading and reacting. They're always trying to think of, who's my guy? And by the time you turn your head one way, turn your head the other way, the puck's in the net. You can't do that in the NHL. You got to know exactly where you're supposed to be and who you're supposed to be covering.
And we saw that in the Toronto game too, the OT goal for William Nylander. It kind of looked like Monahan was expecting Giordano to pick up Nylander, and then Monahan was going to pick up the guy that Gio was covering. It looked like he thought they were going to switch, but just not good enough overall. And you got to be better in your own zone. You can't rely on the goalies to do everything. And we've seen the consequences of that with Markstrom getting injured, getting a little bit overworked because we needed him to be in there to have a chance to win in the first 15, 16 games or whatever it was before he hit that little bit of a rough stretch for him personally. But and then we've been just relying on Roenick too much since he's got his little stretch of games here. So just have to be
with him smashing his head against a fucking door after he got pulled, because the Flames do nothing for their goaltending. They just hang him out to dry game in and game out, because I don't know why. They're like a sponge. They're Swiss cheese in the defensive zone. Anybody can get through there.
Even tonight, there was a couple examples in the third period here. The Flames had a power play, weren't generating too much. Like, they had a couple shots. And then all of a sudden, 2-on-1, Ottawa comes down on a 2-on-1. Roenick has to make an incredible toe save to keep it out, and it was already 4-1 at that point. So it's just inexplicable. Like it just makes you want to pull a David Roenick and bash your head against the wall.
Yeah, I don't, and that's the point that I was going to make. I don't blame him. He's so pissed off and frustrated and getting hung out to dry left, right, and center, and having to win games for the team because of shitty play. Like, where is the leadership on this team? Where is it?
Yeah.
You got to make a change there because they ain't fucking doing anything. And this was my last point that I wanted to make. Gio has to be fucking better. And he is not going to be better because of his age. So you need to make adjustments there. You need to put Gio down on the third pair and give one of your young guys the shot at the minutes to develop. Because I'm almost at the point where this season is a write-off. And I know that sounds crazy, that we're only in 5th place and we're a couple points out of the playoffs, but it's trending in the wrong direction.
Absolutely. Is there a single Flames fan that has any confidence that this team can win a Stanley Cup? Because if you do, you're kidding yourself.
Yeah, not a chance.
This, on paper, this should be a better team. This should be second, maybe third best team in the division, just in terms of the talent, the names, the decor, but they're not playing like it. And it's just been the Calgary Flames of the past 2 or 3 years. So
I honestly think they need to send a message, and Gio needs to sit on the pine for a little bit. I really do think that. His play has been that bad. I mean, he spends half the ice on his fucking ass or his back because he can't, like, people are just blowing around him left, right, and center. Hence one of the tweets that I sent out versus the first Ottawa drubbing of a puck mascot that couldn't get up off the ice. That is Gio. But anyways, I want to move on from the Flames because I'm getting angrier and angrier as we discuss. There'll be a good some good sound clips come out of this podcast.
Can you tell we're passionate people? Can you tell we're passionate Flames fans?
And it's very frustrating because we're not bandwagon Flames fans. We've been Flames fans since we were 2 and 3 years old because my dad was a big Flames fan too. So since we've been through the '89 Cup. Or at least I have. Adam wasn't born yet.
No.
We went through the '89 Cup. We went through all the shit years of the early '90s.
Back when it was the Canadian Airlines Saddle Dome.
Yeah, building. I mean, obviously, I haven't been alive as long as the team's been in Calgary, but I was cheering from the womb, I guess.
Yeah.
But all through the dog days of the '90s, where the team was, almost packing up shop and being shipped out elsewhere. Because no one was going to the games, to the miracle 04 run, which we had no business doing either. But man, that was some times in Calgary. The Red Mile, of course, all that, and then all the hype around this new team and getting Kachuk and Goudreau, and finally having some talent on the team as opposed to a team full of muckers or grinders.
Yeah, a team with Aginla, Kiprusoff, and then nothing.
And Regier.
Yeah.
So we've been through it all. That's why we're so passionate. And that's why we're so frustrated with the way that this team is playing, because they should not be here. They should be better.
All right. Well, we'll move on to the rest of the North Division here. We kind of went over the standings a little bit, but we'll start with the biggest story, which was Montreal firing Claude Julien. I did not see this one coming. I know that they've been a very average hockey team since their hot start. So they started out 8-2-2. They're now 9-6-5. Carey Price struggling. And I guess when your goalie struggles, your whole team struggles, especially with that guy.
What did we say in our season preview?
If the Carey or the Montreal Canadiens will be as good as Carey Price allows them to be.
Yep.
Something along
and
those
it's
lines.
Proving true.
Yeah. So they do fire Claude Julien. They bring and Kirk Muller, and they make the assistant coach Dominique Ducharme the interim head coach. He has not been given the official title, but yeah, coaching change in Montreal. They're still in a playoff spot right now, but no doubt they are struggling. They are 2-5-3 in their last 10, including in overtime loss against Winnipeg, I believe, on the weekend. But yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
To be honest, I mean, I was a little shocked by it. I knew they were struggling, but they're still in a playoff spot. So when comparing them to the Flames situation and the Flames doing absolutely nothing in terms of changes, I kind of scratched my head a little bit. I don't know if that's Bergevin's last, kick at the can too in Montreal. I'm assuming it probably is if this doesn't work. That's why he made the coaching change. But when you look at their last 5 losses, so they've lost 5 in a row. 5-3 to the Leafs, 3-2 to the Senators, 5-4 to the Senators. So they lost 2 games in a row to Ottawa, but they're close games. They're a 1-goal game. I mean, it's not great, but it's not atrocious like 6-1 and 5-1 for the Flames. And
facts.
And then they get blown out by Winnipeg a little bit, but Winnipeg will do that to you. Winnipeg's a pretty damn good team. I mean, they're 3rd place in the division. They'll probably challenge the Oilers for the 2nd spot if they keep playing the way they are. I know they're having a rough game against Vancouver tonight, but and then they lost 2-1 to Winnipeg. So it's not like you're getting blown out of the arena. Some slight adjustments there and maybe a few saves, and you win half those games. So a lot of the Montreal sports media saw that coming, and I'm going to be honest, I don't follow Montreal like crazy close unless the Flames are playing them or there's a storyline like this. So I didn't know the trends and how they were playing or anything like that, but obviously they didn't like the way it was trending. So what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Bergevin said that Ducharme is his guy. So take that for what it's worth, but it does reek of a little bit of a desperation move in my eyes, to try and save the season from slipping away too much. They're on a slide, as you said. They've lost 5 in a row. This is probably to give them a jolt, and obviously it hasn't worked to this point yet because they haven't won under Ducharme yet. But it just reeks of a GM trying to shake things up before he himself might ultimately get the axe. He has been in charge since 2012, and the seats been getting hotter and hotter every year. I mean, people forget, and I think even I was forgetting at the start of the year. I knew that they were much improved in terms of their additions, but they finished 24th in the NHL last year. In a normal year, they would not have made the playoffs by a long shot. They were out of it by the 60 game mark or wherever they left off when the pandemic hit. But they're not that far removed from being the 24th place team in the NHL. I know they made some moves, and my biggest fear, if you go back to our season preview, was all the new players, all of them not quite coming together and gelling. They seem to have done that through the first 14 games or 12 games. Like I said, they're 8-2-2.
Yeah, we're also getting goaltending though. Exactly.
Jake Allen's been good in relief, but Carey Price has not been himself, and it's shown so far in the results. So I still think they're a good team. I don't think they're as bad as what they're showing right now. I like the way Pierre LeBrun put it. They're not that team that was 8-2-2, but they're not this bad. They're somewhere in the middle. So I think at the end of the day, they're still going to be either 4th or the 5th place team in the NA or in the North Division. Depends on what Calgary does here, but yeah, it's an interesting move for sure. I did not see it coming.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is, I guess. I agree. It reeks a little bit of desperation on Bergevin's part, trying to, not let the season slip away. But there's something to be said for making a change too. And I think Brad Treliving needs to take a good hard look at that as well.
Take a page out of Bergevin's book?
Not necessarily a page, but consider doing something because the season is slipping away.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're almost at the halfway mark. We're a game shy of being halfway, I think. Or two.
And then the unfortunate thing about that is that obviously we're still in a pandemic, and we have to, unless you're going to trade within the North Division, you got to deal with that 2-week quarantine. We saw Winnipeg address it early, so that they had time to do the whole turnaround, and the quarantine didn't affect them very much. But if you make a move right now with a team that's in the States, to shake up your core, or if it's just something smaller or whatever, I mean, it's going to be 2 weeks before you see that, and then who knows where you'll sit then. So definitely a tough spot. I do not envy Brad Treliving's position right now. I'm sure he's just as frustrated as everyone else is in Calgary, but the seat is definitely getting hotter underneath Brad Treliving. That's for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So what I wanted to say was, how's that Dubois trade working out for Winnipeg?
Woo! Oh boy. He's good.
He's good. Yeah, but Patrick Kane and Rossovic are lighting it up in Columbus. I mean, they've got what, 8 or 9 points each now?
Rossovic was feeling it there for sure. He looks like a totally rejuvenated, different player. Just bringing up their numbers right now, but the team, the Columbus as a whole, are reeling a little bit. They did bounce back with a win over Detroit tonight, but 13 points in 16 games for Jack Rossovic. So, I mean, he was always that guy who didn't seem like he was getting the opportunity to let his full skill set show in Winnipeg. So nice to see him find a role there in Columbus. And Patrick Laine, 6 goals and 10 points in 13 games. So they're getting the offense out of those guys. The team success hasn't quite turned around, but lots of time for them, and they got some games against Detroit to make up for it.
Detroit.
Yes. Anything else from the North Division in particular that you want to talk about, or should we move on to the mess in Buffalo?
One other thing, I think the Leafs deserve some credit in the North Division. They beat the Edmonton Oilers quite handily 4-0 without their superstar Matthews in the lineup, and Joe Thornton as well. So I think I just wanted to touch on and get your opinion. I think Toronto's a lot deeper than people give them credit for.
I think they are too, and they have a slightly different looking team this year, with the likes of Simmons. I know he's been out injured, but Thornton, Brody's been pretty good for them. Obviously, still makes the odd mistake, as we know, but
the mouth guard in his hand and look into the sky.
Yeah, we give him a hard time about that. But and as you speak right now, I'm just looking up the score: 3-0 Toronto at the end of the first period against Edmonton tonight. And that is without Austin Matthews again tonight.
Who's in net?
Michael Hutchinson.
No, I'm talking for the Oilers.
I assume it's Mike Smith. Let me just get a look here. No, it was actually Koskinen. 3 goals on 7 shots, or on 10 shots. So,
hey, Hutchinson's been pretty good for the Leafs. I mean, he beat the Flames. He beat the Flames too the other night with a solid effort.
Yeah,
and you know, the 3-0 loss to the Flames, none of the goals were his fault. Those were all nice goals.
Yeah, and obviously when you don't score a goal, hard to win, right?
Exactly. But yeah, I just wanted to give because Toronto's first in the NHL by 5 or 6 points. Never thought I'd hear those words being said, but this year might be the year, Leafs fans. Your team's trending in the right direction. I mean, they're getting decent goaltending from Anderson. They had really good backup goaltending in Campbell. So hopefully once Campbell gets back healthy here, the goaltending situation will improve a little bit. The goaltending depth situation will improve a little bit in Toronto. But in the meantime, Hutchinson's playing quite well for you guys. You can't really complain too much there. And I mean, when you have Austin Matthews scoring at the pace that he is, seems to be at will. That's a pretty good recipe for success. Hopefully he can bounce back from, I think it's a wrist injury, right?
Yes, wrist hand kind of combination is what what I have been seeing on the reports, and all this good hockey from Toronto is in spite of not getting the best sort of play out of two guys in particular, John Tavares and William Nylander, outside of that Calgary game where he scored the game tying goal and the OT winner. They have gone long stretches without points and goals. So, I mean, that's kind of why you're seeing Matthews get some Hart Trophy talk, which I think is very deserved. And one other thing about Matthews, I don't want to turn this into an Austin Matthews love fest, but he is so much more of a complete player than I thought he was. He's good in his own zone, and I wouldn't be surprised if he wins a Selke at some point in his career, because he's good in all three zones. Obviously, an elite offensive player. That release, my goodness, it seems to change every time he shoots the puck. But very deserved Hart Trophy talk for Austin Matthews and Toronto. Like you said, this might be their year. There's no better year to make a run. There's no Tampa or Boston to go through in the first or second round. You're guaranteed to have a Canadian team in the Final Four. So this might be the year, folks. Get ready for it, because we'll never hear the end of it if they do.
Oh, there's going to be so many asterisks on a Maple Leafs Cup win if this happens. Yeah. Oh, it wasn't a full season. Oh, it was the Canadian division. They were weak. Yeah. Asterisk. That's pretty funny. I totally agree with you on Matthews. We, being out west, we only got to see the Leafs twice a year, so we didn't really get a good snapshot of Austin Matthews. Holy crap, I cannot talk. Austin Matthews. There's an outtake for you. Austin Matthews play on both ends of the ice. Obviously, you get the highlight package and all the highlight reel goals, but you didn't get to really observe him in the defensive zone as well. But now that we're playing at least 9 times this season, you get a fuller picture of his talent at both ends of the ice, and I totally agree with you. He's I don't know if he's taken a big step forward this year in terms of his defensive zone responsibilities and coverage, but definitely noticeable. He knows what he's doing in the defensive zone, and he definitely knows what he's doing in the offensive zone. So I agree with you. The hard talk is totally warranted. But just wanted to ask you what you thought of Cassie Campbell's comments that seemed to light the Canadian division on fire, when she said that Matthews is a better overall player than McDavid, or something to that nature.
I think he's more complete in terms of 3-zone player. Obviously, McDavid's high end is better than Matthews, and he's better offensively than Matthews. But Matthews is definitely closing that gap this year. But just in terms of take over a game ability, McDavid is still the best player in the world, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
We saw it. Yeah. But and I know people like to rag on Cassie Campbell. I mean, yeah, she does say some obvious things sometimes, and I know a lot of people get frustrated by that, but I don't think she's as bad as some people let on. I think people tend to forget sometimes that she is a gold medal winning captain for Team Canada multiple times. I think we should take her opinions and insight seriously. I know some people just don't like her voice. I guess to each their own, but I know she's a bit of a lightning rod for controversy in terms of hockey fans.
Well, when you compare Matthews with McDavid and side on the Matthews side, I mean, Edmonton sports fans are going to be all over you because it's McJesus. You know what it is in Edmonton.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to get your thought on that. I don't have an opinion either way with Cassie Campbell. I think she does a fine job on the broadcast. And she has a unique perspective on things, being, like you said, a female gold medal winning captain for Team Canada. So, I mean, she does know what she's talking about. She knows the game of hockey for sure. But she does take a lot of heat. I know that.
Well, one thing in particular she takes heat for, which I agree. She tends to go on these rants and stories during the actual play. Sometimes I don't think she can help herself in terms of that.
Rudy does that a lot too, though.
Yes, he does as well. So maybe a bit of a double standard there for Flames fans. But yeah, so I just wanted to say that. But anything else on the North Division, or should we move on to the Buffalo disaster?
Well, I mean, we always shortchange the Oilers on this podcast because we're Flames first podcast, but I think we do need to highlight Edmonton's looking pretty damn good this year.
Mm-hmm. Despite these last 2 games.
Despite these last 2 games, yes. But I mean, they're playing very tight defensive hockey without their number 1 D-man throughout the entire. Yeah, exactly. So they finally have a coach that knows what he's doing in the defensive end and can get the most out of players in that zone. I agree. You completely jumped the gun there. That's what I was going to say. But I think we need to give credit to our neighbors to the north. They are playing some good hockey right now.
Yeah,
very good hockey.
There's no doubt anywhere that Edmonton is by far the better team in Alberta right now. No question about it. And they're getting goaltending, which they weren't at the beginning of the year because Koskinen was the only guy and he was playing every game and was struggling and also probably tired. But Mike Smith has come back, and I know we joked about it, the savior, Mike Smith, but he has been the savior pretty much, which is surprising and tough to see as Flames fans, as we've been through the struggles with him and we've seen the highs and the lows of him. But definitely, we do give the Oilers a hard time, obviously, just usually all in good fun, but they're playing excellent hockey right now, despite, as we said, the last 2 games. But Buffalo,
and they're 9-3 in February.
Yeah,
that's pretty damn good.
Yeah, and Darnell Nurse has taken a giant step in his game. Maybe with Klefbom out, he's shouldered more minutes, more power play time, more PK time, playing in all situations. So he's definitely stepped up his game and probably is having the best season of his career, I would say, most Oilers fans would say. But anything else? Or
no, let's move on. Buffalo.
Buffalo, my goodness. So yeah, tied for dead last in the NHL. Eichel rumors. Is Eichel finally on the way out? There's been more smoke to that fire recently. Not saying it's going to happen, but there's definitely been some rumblings around the NHL. What are your thoughts on Buffalo right now?
Oh, well, I mean, I've seen all the posts on Twitter and even in Instagram on the the stat of Taylor Hall, Eichel, and Jeff Skinner. Like how many millions of dollars? Well, $30 million tied up between the 3 of them and 3 goals.
Mm-hmm. So I have it in our schedule here. Unbelievable stat. That's the one I was going to get to. So let me just rattle this off, and then I'll shoot it to you here. So Eichel, Hall, and Skinner, and let's not forget Kyle Okposo, all combined to make $33 million, and they have 3 goals between them, which is half the amount of Milan Lucic.
That is crazy.
So I'll shoot it to you now. Like, I mean, obviously we've seen Skinner get healthy scratched, 0 goals to date, $9 million for 6 more years. It's a mess.
Yeah, I mean, it's a mess. I mean, how do you sum it up even better than that you can't. Unfortunately, I think they've squandered Jack Eichel. Mm-hmm. He obviously was a franchise player that you could have very easily built a team around in the last 3 to 4 years. But it's the story of Buffalo, man. The Sabres have been cursed ever since Hasek left. So for some reason, they haven't been able to string it together. They've even changed over their entire front office too. So I don't know if it's the owners or the culture that's in Buffalo, or if it's just Buffalo in general. I have no idea. Obviously, I've never been to Buffalo, so I can't really judge too bad. But I feel sorry for Buffalo fans because it is a very good hockey market. There are a lot of Sabres fans out there that deserve a lot better than what they're getting here. I don't know how, like, Taylor Hall, is he overrated? It's been 2 teams now where he's done nothing since he's been traded.
Mm-hmm. Except for the one, obviously the Hart season, but ever since then, it's been a steady decline in terms of production and overall impact.
Or have injuries finally cut up? Oh my God, I cannot talk.
Cut up.
Caught up with Taylor Hall.
That could be it as well. I mean, he was brought in to sort of satisfy Eichel in terms of having someone to play with. But they've combined for 3 goals, as we mentioned, just not good enough. And now Eichel has been out injured a little bit too, which hasn't helped. But also Linus Ullmark, who is the better of the 2 goalies at the future number 1 or the current number 1 as well, is now out injured.
That doesn't help things.
Just continues to get worse and worse for Buffalo. And do I think it'll like end up in an Eichel trade? Maybe not during this season, but would it shock me if Eichel was somewhere else by the start of next season? No, it wouldn't. I wouldn't trade him. I know I wouldn't trade him if I was Buffalo, but if they get the right deal, I guess. I mean, they're talking full-blown rebuild again for Buffalo, which is just an absolute mind-blowing thing. They
just went through the rebuild.
Yeah, they're not waiting on anyone to arrive. Everyone's arrived. They have the number 1 center in Eichel. They have the number 1 D-man in Rasmus Dahlin, who, to be fair, hasn't been number 1 pick sort of material so far. He hasn't been as good, I think, as people were expecting, including myself. But yeah, it's I feel so sorry for the Sabres fans. I mean, we saw, I think it was last season or maybe it was the season before, there was this clip that went viral of this Buffalo fan calling into a radio station, just absolutely lambasting the organization, the owners, everything. He was just so mad, and now it's gotten even worse. So I can't imagine what the radio shows, the call-in shows are like in Buffalo right now.
Yeah, I don't know. And there's no hope in sight. Like they're going to have to dismantle this team and try and rebuild on the fly, I guess, would be the short-term solution. The long-term solution is, they get rid of, Jack Eichel for some prospects. I'm sure they'll get more than just prospects for Jack Eichel, of course. It'll be a pretty good player, maybe 2 pretty good players coming back the other way, and some picks and prospects as well for Jack Eichel. But like, what do you do? Who do you, if you get rid of Jack Eichel, who do you build around? He ain't doing it around Middlestat. He hasn't done anything, even though he was super hyped to come up. Do you build around Cousins?
I mean, you gotta, in my eyes, if you've made the decision to move on from Eichel and try to get a king's ransom for him, Dylan Cousins is looking like an excellent guy to build around. Obviously, Captain Canada at the last World Juniors, so he would probably be, and Rasmus Dahlin, the 2 building blocks to go around. But that's going to be a long process for Buffalo again if they decide to go that route, and just feel bad for the Sabres fans. But anything else on Buffalo, or you want to move on to Nashville?
Well, I'm just thinking, like, who realistically is a trade target for Jack Eichel? Who can fit in the $10 million price tag for Eichel for the next 7 years or whatever it is? Well,
there's been lots of talk about the New York Rangers, perhaps. Obviously, that would involve. I think I saw a rumor earlier today about one of Capo Caco or Mika Zibanejad, or both. for Eichel. I don't know what Rangers
If
fans
I'm
would think
Buffalo,
about that.
I'm not making that trade. No
No.
way.
Obviously that would be the basis of it. I'm sure there's more to it than that, but yeah, you have to get a top 6 forward, an A-level prospect, and a first round pick at the bare minimum. I would think, if you're looking to move Eichel out, but the Rangers have come up. I haven't really heard any other specific teams in terms of interest in Eichel. I'm sure there would be 30 teams interested in Eichel, but yeah, when you're making 10 million, that complicates things a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, you hear on Flames Twitter all the time, or trade for Eichel, trade for Eichel. The Flames don't have the assets to trade for Eichel. Believe me. It ain't going to happen.
Yeah. If you think Monahan, Bennett, and a first round pick is going to get it done,
you're dreaming.
You're seriously mistaken. Because who's looking at Sean Monahan right now and thinking, "Ooh, I need me some of that."
Nobody. Sorry, Buffalo. It's going to be dark for a long time. I mean, they got a big decision coming up in Buffalo just around what to do with Taylor Hall. I mean, do you offer him, an extension or not? I mean, he's an $8 million price tag this year. He only signed for 1 year. Or do you use that money to try and, field a defensive core, or maybe get a goalie between the pipes, because Hutton is a UFA after this year. Where's Allmark? So is Allmark. So they do, saving grace is they do have like 12 million, or more than that, probably 14 or 15 million. Oh, more than that will stall off the books too. So it's 18 million or so in cap space for next year. So that is a little bit of a saving grace, but then you're also paying Jeff Skinner $9 million until the cows come home.
Yeah.
And you have another 2 years after this year of Okposo at $6 million for 0 goals. So you got to decide what you're going to do with Sam Reinhart too, because he's into his last RFA year. So you got to sign him for a bridge deal or move on and get rid of him. I don't know what his trade value would be. But yeah, it's not looking good in Buffalo.
Yeah, at least we're not Buffalo, right?
Yeah, that's true. At least we're not Buffalo, right?
All right.
I mean, Rasmus Ristolainen in Buffalo too has been an absolute gong show over the last 3 years too. He was highly touted coming in, looked pretty good his first couple seasons, but man, has been struggling left, right, and center in Buffalo too.
And actually, on Ristolainen, I think he's bounced back this season, but he has been hit hard by COVID. Obviously, we had those. The Sabres had the scare with COVID, which is probably a big reason why they're struggling too. I think an article came out, if not last week, the week before. Ristolainen couldn't go up a flight of stairs without his heart feeling like it was going to explode when he had COVID. I believe were his quotes, and he wasn't able to even move around his house without being extremely fatigued, and is still suffering from those type of symptoms. So definitely a bit of a rough stretch for him and the Sabres. But yes, tough or scary to hear that type of stuff. If you don't think COVID-19 is real, just ask Rasmus Ristolainen, and I'm sure he'll tell you that it's no joke. Let's move on to Nashville, a fire sale potentially. Just looking at the standings right here. I know they've bounced back a little bit. I believe they've won back-to-back games, one being against Columbus, if I'm not mistaken. But yes, they are currently sitting 6th in the Central Division, 8 points behind Chicago for the 4th playoff spot. They do have 2 games in hand. But
they've won 4 or 5 actually.
4 or 5. Okay. So they have bounced back a little bit better than I thought. But there have been rumblings of Ekholm's availability and also Philip Forsberg, which is a name that I didn't expect to hear on the market. but definitely would be a desirable asset by a lot of teams, as well as Ekholm, very solid defenseman. And I think that one is more the case of expansion draft talk. Obviously, you want to protect Yossi, Ryan Ellis, and then apparently they're wanting to protect Dante Fabro as well. So they got to get rid of one of them, and it looks like Ekholm might be the odd man out there, even though he's a very solid defenseman. And I know you're a big fan of him as well. In years past, you've spoke very highly of him. So
yeah, for sure. I really like him.
So Nashville, what are your thoughts on what they should do, and if you can see them making a comeback here in the division?
Well, if Forsberg's available, pick him up.
Pick him up.
To quote Dumb and Dumber.
Yeah.
But I don't think they're. Well, I guess they are 8 points out of the playoffs, aren't they? Yeah, that's not looking very good. I mean, they do have some interesting pieces on Nashville for sure. They have the Matt Duchene curse right now for the next 7 years at $8 million or whatever it was, 6 years at $8 million. If you could get Forsberg out of Nashville, I don't know what it would cost you going back in return. He is a left winger, so I mean, the Flames need someone on the right side. But I'm sure you could slot somebody in on the right side if you picked up a top 6 forward like Forsberg. Yeah. And a pretty decent salary. I mean, $6 million for the next 2 seasons. Mm-hmm. He's UFA after that, and likely will not re-sign in Calgary if they do make a trade like that. But
right in his prime, 26 years old.
Right in his prime, yeah. Definitely, it would be an attractive piece. Granlund would be an interesting piece too for some center depth. At a 3.75 price tag for this year, and then only locked into this year. I mean, he's a UFA after that, so I could see him potentially moving at or on the trade deadline. But question for you, when is the trade deadline this year?
It's early April, if I'm not mistaken. Let me look that up while you're going to say something else there.
Yeah, I mean, some of these depth guys would be nice ads for the right team as well. Yarncrook, 2 seasons at $2 million. Eric Holla could be an attractive center depth piece as well for a $1.75 million price tag. I mean, even Nick Cousins could definitely round out some depth for a lot of people or a lot of teams out there too, chasing the playoffs. It comes at a pretty decent price tag too at $1.5 million. You're going to have a hard time moving Johansson at $8 million.
I was just going to bring him up. 5 points in 14 games from your supposed number 1 center.
Yeah, I don't think there's a lot of people out there that would want to take that on for sure for that production. There's some question about his give a shit as well, Johansson out there lately, as we kind of alluded to in our previous episodes. Arvidsson would be a piece, but you'd be probably giving away one of the people you'd like to build around going forward, because he's a pretty decent player on the wing and is locked into a decent contract for the next 4 years at 4.25. So, yeah, I mean, there's lots of interesting pieces in Nashville for sure.
So April 12th is the trade deadline at 3 p.m. Eastern. So just about a month and a half, a little bit less than a month and a half away. So if you wanted to make a move, that's when you got to do it before April 12th.
Okay. And yeah, like you said on that was just the forward core. Ekholm would definitely bolster defensive depth on a team for sure. Like bring over Ekholm, just think what that does to a Flames defensive core. Bumps Nesterov or that rotating door of our bottom 3B spot there out. Do you split up Hanifin and Tanev? Probably not. So like an Ekholm Anderson and then a Gio Valimaki. That's pretty good decor right there, even with Giordano's struggles. That's what I would do if we were to obtain Ekholm, of course. Who would you give up for it? I'm not sure. But I didn't realize he signed to a pretty decent ticket, 3.75 for the next 2 years. So it's quite attractive. trade piece for sure.
And yeah, and he's still solid right now, and he's only 30. So with that cap hit and term left, very desirable asset. I'm sure there will be no shortage of suitors for Mattias Ekholm. Obviously, Philip Forsberg would be the more desirable piece if I was the Flames GM. This team is struggling to score goals right now, despite a little bit of an outburst against Ottawa. It is Ottawa, of course, on Saturday. But obviously, it's not going to be cheap to get him. Again, do we have the assets, the type of desirable assets to get a guy like Forsberg? I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
Especially with, what is Nashville looking for? Are they looking for roster players to try and make the playoffs this year, or is it going to be sort of a step back this year and miss the playoffs and try to do a quick retool to get back into the window here? But I Forsberg, Ekholm, definitely guys I would look at for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I think you got to kick tires on them for sure and inquire what the price would be for both those players.
And I'm sure True Living has.
Yeah, I'm sure he has. But yeah, no, I don't see the Flames having any of the pieces to land someone like Forsberg without trading a good piece back in return. I mean, Gaudreau comes to mind if they're thinking of trading Gaudreau, like they could swap a Gaudreau Forsberg kind of thing. But where does that leave you? I don't know if you're better.
No,
I don't think you are actually. Doesn't address any of the issues that we've been having. But anyways, it'll be interesting to see what Nashville does, because you're right. 8 points in a shortened season is a tough hole to climb out of. So I expect them to be selling at the deadline or up into the deadline.
All right. That does it for Nashville. Let's move on to the St. Louis Blues, is a team that we wanted to talk about. The St. Louis Blues and the San Jose Sharks played an absolutely wild game, maybe the game of the year this past weekend, with the Blues coming out on top 7-6. Some 1980s style hockey going on here, and we also had some, or almost had some 1980s style brawls going down with Jordan Binnington, Binner as he's called, having an absolute meltdown after being pulled, going around faking punching guys and pushing goalies and on his way off the ice. Definitely, I mean, you want to see guys have some compete and some fire, maybe go about it in a different way than Binnington did, but we know he has a bit of a nasty streak. This is a kid who told Martin Brodeur that he wasn't going to the East Coast League a few years ago when the team sat him down and tell him they were sending him down. He just flat out refused to go. And now here he is being the number one goalie. So very confident guy, a very unique guy. And we saw that in the game against San Jose.
Kind of puts off the prick file, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Even like listening to and seeing his interview with Spittin' Chicklets, he's very confident in himself. I'll just put it like that. Yeah, definitely gives off a bit of a Richard vibe, as they'd say on the morning show. A bit of
we're a podcast, we can swear, right?
Yeah, a bit of a dick. But yeah, it's kind of gutless to go around fake punching guys on your way off the ice.
I mean, that's also a symptom of how you get off the ice in San Jose's arena. Like, you have to skate through everybody to the corner to get off the ice. Although, like, when you pull a goalie, can't they just go to the bench? Do they have to leave the ice?
I don't know. Some rinks are weird. Like, they don't have enough space
I forgot
for the
about
goalie
that.
to sit on the bench. I think Montreal is that way too, if I'm not mistaken. And San Jose is definitely one. We've seen the clips of the goalies sitting in the corner by themselves. Always thought that was a bit strange. Like, you can't take one seat out in the stands and extend the bench. Like, are you that greedy for more money?
Yeah, no kidding.
But yeah, that definitely didn't help things.
No, definitely. I mean, you're upset. You probably, I don't know how he got pulled, how many goals he let in. I'm assuming probably 4 or 5 before he was pulled. I mean, you're upset at yourself. You're upset at the game you're having. So I understand the, being pissed off and potentially bumping into a player or something on the way out. But don't fake punch guys, especially when you're a goalie and you're wearing a blocker and things like that. Like, that's just going to piss people off. And then don't go after Dubnyk. He had nothing to do with why you're playing so shitty. But yet he goes after Dubnyk and beats him all the way out. You tell Dubnyk did not like that at all, and was just giving it right back to him. And he had a quote, I can't remember what it is, so you can look it up on Twitter. That was pretty funny about it. Basically calling the Binnington a nobody or something like that. So rivalries, man. That's what happens when you play the same team like 8 or 9 times in one season. Shit like that happens.
And I mean, the game overall was just crazy. It was just back and forth. 7-6 ended up being the final, and St. Louis gets a big win there. Bit of a tough stretch for St. Louis. They haven't been as good as people maybe thought, or as they thought they were going to be. They're still third in their division, so they're only 1 point out of first, but they're 11-8-2, so that they're not dominating teams. Obviously, Vegas and Minnesota have some games in hand on them, including Colorado behind them. But they have picked up a few injuries as well. Tarasenko's out, has been out all year. Looks like he might be stepping back into the lineup soon. If not the next game, the game after that. But Parayko is out long-term. And of course, I accidentally closed the window of the story I had open with all the injuries. But I know Parayko's one.
Minnesota in that division, 12-6 in second place right now.
Kaprizov, man, Kaprizov. I told you this guy was going to be good.
They got Tyler Bosak on the injured reserve list.
And Schwartz was the other one.
Robert that I was Thomas as well.
Yeah. So that's a lot of top guys to be missing. And they're still in a good spot right now. They're by no means should they be panicking, but they're all out indefinitely. So that leaves a lot of question marks going forward. We'll have to keep a close eye on the St. Louis Blues to see if they can battle their way through these tough injuries that they're picking up.
Well, they will. They're a pretty deep team, so plus they're in a pretty weak division too, so they don't really have to worry about Arizona or Anaheim or San Jose catching them. So the Kings might catch them, but the Kings are actually on a little bit of a tear lately. Let's move on from the St. Louis Blues and talk about a certain milestone that happened last week.
So before moving on to our favorite segment, the OTI Top 5, Patty Kane scored his 400th goal this weekend, and he's nearing 1,000 games played as well. So joining some pretty elite company there. Obviously, Kane's more of a playmaker than a goal scorer, but 400 goals, obviously nothing to sneeze at. And we've watched it for years. Just one of the premier offensive players in the National Hockey League since the day he stepped in, and not surprising to see him hit that milestone with plenty of runway left to go.
Yeah, I mean, one of the most naturally talented goal scorers in recent memory, Patrick Kane. Definitely one of my most favorite people to watch play hockey. Every time he's on the ice, something dynamic's happening. Definitely was a Flames killer for a long time, especially when we had played Chicago in playoff rounds a few years back. But he's now 7th on the U.S.-born hockey player list of all time for the best of all time, points-wise, of course, I'm talking about. Probably this season he'll be moving into 5th place on this list in short order here. So just curious, I'm going to put you on the spot. Can you name anyone above Patrick Kane on the top American-born NHL hockey players of all time.
Okay. I don't know about the actual rankings. I'm going to say Mike Modano has the most in history.
No,
Okay, he's number
second.
one.
No, he's second.
Oh, he's second? Okay. Who would be number one? Oh, I know Phil Housley's up there as well.
Number three.
Number three. People forget about him, man. I'm going to say Joe Nieuwendyk.
No. They're all, of course, retired. There's no current. Patrick Kane is the highest current player right now.
Jeremy Roenick.
Roenick is fourth, yeah.
Yeah, Roenick has to be there. Who am I missing that's number one? Is there somebody so obvious that I'm missing it?
Gloria.
Oh, Brett Hull, of course.
Glory.
We bleed blue.
Yeah, Brett Hull ahead of Mike Modano by about 20 points on the list.
Okay.
So I'll just run it down quickly. So Brett Hall's number one, Modano number two, Housley number three. I had no idea Housley had 1,232 points in his NHL career. That's crazy. 338 goals and 894 assists.
And then I'm going to say, is Joe Mullen the other one?
He's on the list, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So Roenick's fourth. Keith Tkachuk is number five. Number six is Joe Mullen.
Okay. And then Patty Kane at seventh. So
Patty Kane at seven.
Joining some pretty elite company there, and I wouldn't be so. How far is Kane, since you got the list there, behind being out in the top four?
He's got a ways to go to get in the top four. So Kane's at a total of 1,056 points. To move into fifth spot, so take over Keith Tkachuk, he only needs 9 points.
Okay, and then there's a pretty big gap to fourth.
Yeah, Roenick's got 1,200 points, so there's a couple hundred points to go still, or like 150 points.
And what was the total points on Modano?
Modano 1,374.
Okay, so he could be the highest scoring player in history by the end of it.
Yeah, he could be, depending on how many
US
seasons
player,
he plays.
I should say. So yeah, obviously, just so much fun to watch. So silky smooth, great speed, unreal vision. Just one of the best offensive players in the game still. And nice to see him score the 400th. And it was a cool celebration. The whole team kind of got around him and celebrated with him. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, Patty Kane making history.
Yeah, the next current NHL player on the list is 14, Phil Kessel.
Phil Kessel. Phil?
Phil. And then 19, Joe Pavelski. Those are the top three current NHL players that are American-born on the list. Okay,
that's some pretty good company. Anything else on that, or you want to move on to the OTI top five?
One last note on Kane. I think he's a large reason why, outside of the goaltending in Chicago, why Chicago is doing quite well this year, better than all of us predicted, especially without Taves for the entire season as well so far. But yeah, no, it's he's definitely one of the most exciting players to watch. And look out, Chicago in the playoffs. If they get in,
and this is all without Taves too.
Yeah. They can be in dark horse for a deep run into the playoffs. So I would not want to be playing Chicago going into the playoffs. I'll tell you that right now.
Absolutely, and it's what a world we live in. That such a roller coaster season for so many teams. I remember trashing Chicago earlier. I think in like the first couple episodes after the season got going. We thought that they were going to have an historically bad season, but here they are in a playoff spot.
Yeah.
Crazy
what can you
times.
say? It's pretty crazy. Weird season, folks. Weird season.
Absolutely. All right. Let's move on to everyone's favorite segment. And by everyone, I mean ours. Our favorite segment. The OTI top five. Get at us on Twitter with any future suggestions at Off the Iron Pod on Twitter for topics that you want us to cover in future ones. But
get at us on any of our socials with topics.
Yes, absolutely. But for today, as we mentioned earlier, our top 5 favorite cliches in hockey, interview cliches, I should say. So
This
you're going to
list
hear
could be 10, 15, 20 things long.
I think they did a counter on an interview on the morning show one time here in Calgary, and I think one guy dropped 17 cliches in about a 20-second clip. So there's no shortage of options here, but there's probably going to be some overlap here. Me and Evan have not seen each other's lists, so it'll be interesting to see how many common ones we have here. But do you want to get it going with your number 5 favorite cliche?
Sure. I think so. Number 5 on my list is got to get out there and bang some bodies.
Yes.
That comes up from time to time. It always makes me laugh, usually when teams aren't playing as physical as they should be. So you definitely hear that being brought up. You got to get in there, got to grind, got to bang some bodies. So that's number 5 on my list.
All right. Number 5, and you hear this all the time. Evan, your best players have got to be your best players.
They do.
They just have to be. You're not going to go anywhere if your best players aren't your best.
By definition, the best player on your team should be the best player.
Yeah, that's so that's number 5 for me. Always love hearing that one.
Best players got to be the best players. I hear that all too often in Calgary Flames land. Okay, number 4 on my list. Close to my heart, being a goaltender, but yeah, our attendee really bailed us out back there. You hear that all the time. It's like, we got to play better. Our attendee really bailed us out back there. Or you can insert the nickname of whatever goaltender's out there with a Y at the end of it. So Marty, well, not for Riddich, but most hockey nicknames end with something E. Bailed us out back there. So that's number 4 on my list. Our attendee bailed us out back there.
Nice. And usually when attendee bails you out, you get the big 2 points. That's a big 2 points for us. That's number 4 for me. You always hear players talking about it. I don't care how he won. It's a big 2 points.
That's a big 2. Yeah, wasn't pretty, but it was big 2 points.
Yeah, got 2 points. That's all that matters.
Oh man, hockey interviews are so bad sometimes.
Yep. So that's number 4 for me.
All right, number 3 on my list. What do we say about the Flames all the time? Got to get our feet moving out there. Got to get skating.
Gotta get the feet moving. Okay.
You hear that all the time whenever things are not going according to plan, or the effort's not there, or team's looking a little slow out there. Not just with the Flames, with anybody. Everyone always says in the interview, "We're not skating. Got to get our feet moving out there." So
okay.
My 3rd hockey cliche.
No overlap yet, because my number 3 is going to be different as well. Evan, you know what they say. Putting the puck on the net is never a bad idea.
Gotta get pucks to the net.
Yeah, when you put the puck on the net, good things happen. Okay, doesn't matter how it goes in, just that it goes in. Okay, so putting the puck on the net is never, ever a bad idea.
True, unless you're the Flames and all the pucks are from the perimeter that you're getting on net.
Facts.
Do it. Facts. Okay, moving on. Number 2 on my list. I should mention I do have an honorable mention on this list, and that is pucks in deep. Got to get pucks in deep. If you're a hockey fan, you're the only person that would know what that means. But I went with, for number 2 on my list, just one word: sauced.
Sauced.
You see that sweet backhand sauce or something like that? Hockey players use that slang all the time. He sauced me the puck. What a A-class sauce there. And, like you hear that in interviews from time to time. Of course, meaning a beautiful pass.
Or as Christoph Oliwal calls it, a sausage pass. That's an inside joke for anyone who listens to Sportsnet 960, the morning show. They play that clip all the time. Oh yeah, he sent me a perfect sausage pass. and that led to the old Brent Cron can barely breathe laugh clip that they play all the time too.
What I just did there, almost
the windshield wiper laugh.
So number 2 on my list, just sauced. Can also be used for, we had a few beers after the game or before the game.
Yeah. Speaking of which, Flames might have got sauced last night. They were struggling in warm-up. Guys falling all over the place.
I saw that. I knew this game was not going to go well.
Yeah. That even made it to the Twitter account entitled Hockey Images That Precede Unfortunate Events. All right, number 2. Sometimes, you just got to simplify things. You just got to take it one shift at a time. Shift at a time. When you're struggling, you can't think about the big picture. You can't think about the whole 60 minutes. Just got to think about the next shift. One shift at a time, brother.
One shift at a time.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah, I think every hockey player has said that in an interview at one point in their lifetime, for sure.
Yeah.
Number 1 on my list of hockey cliches, interview cliches, isn't really a cliche that I have down here, but it's something that every single hockey interview has multiple occurrences of by any single player, and that is, we gotta get pucks in deep, and we gotta get our feet moving out there, but
nice How I Met Your Mother reference there.
So the conversation string together phrase of is my number 1.
Yeah. Or yeah,
same thing.
Okay, I like it. For my number one is actually your honorable mention, because buddy, you just got to get pucks in deep. You just got to do it.
You just got to jump those pucks in deep, and you just got to chase them down.
Yeah, you just got to get in behind their D, and you got to get pucks deep, and you got to bang and crash.
You got to bang some bodies.
So PID, pucks in deep. That's my number 1 favorite hockey cliche, and it'll never change.
That's funny. Okay, run down your list one more time for folks.
All right, number 5, your best players got to be your best players. Number 4, that's a big 2 points for us. Number 3, putting the puck on net is never a bad idea. Number 2, got to take it one shift at a time. And number 1, pucks in deep.
Pucks in deep. Also a great name for a beer league team.
Yep.
Okay, recounting my list. Number 5, got to get in there and bang some bodies. Number 4, our attendee really bailed us out back there. Number 3, got to get our feet moving. Every hockey player said that at one point or another in an interview. Number 2, sauced. He sauced me the puck. Backhand sauce, top cheese, far down. Other cliches in there. And number 1, and every single hockey player says that about 17 times during an interview, for the most part. So there you have it. Our top 5 lists of hockey interview cliches.
All right, that wraps up the OTI top 5. Once again, get at us on our socials for future topics in that segment, and be sure to use the hashtag OTI top 5 so we'll see it, and add us on Twitter, add us on Instagram, the whole 9 yards. So that wraps up that segment, and that wraps up the podcast. Lots of stuff discussed in this one. Hopefully brighter days ahead for us Flames fans. Not totally confident, but that wraps it up. Before we say goodbye, once again, just a reminder that Off the Iron is brought to you by Rocky Mountain Barbecue Catering. Visit their website at rockymountainbarbecue.ca and request a free quote for any events in the future. Also, drop by the store for some lunch. Open 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. on weekdays at 5303 68th Avenue, Southeast Calgary. Once again, don't forget to follow us on our social media pages on Facebook and Instagram at Off the Iron Podcast, on Twitter at Off the Iron Pod, our Gmail, offtheironpodcast@gmail.com, as well as our YouTube channel. So that wraps
Which
it up.
is now officially caught up, by the way.
Yes, I saw that. Any last words, Evan?
No, I just like to close off the podcast with, a positive message. I know a lot of people are struggling out there. It's tough times for a lot of folks. If listening to this podcast brings you any levity in that situation, we're absolutely 100% grateful for all the listens that we've been getting over the last several months. And hopefully if, talking hockey or listening to people talk hockey is a reprieve from that, we're happy to do so. Adam and I really enjoy this, doing this podcast. And, just keep your head up out there, folks. Things are going to get better, even though it doesn't seem like it. 2021 will end up hopefully being a positive year when it's all said and done, instead of another year of shit like 2020. But with that said, just stay positive and keep your head up. And I think, go ahead.
Absolutely. I was just going to say, well said, brother. And I second everything you just said. And once again, we appreciate everyone listening. And I think we'll cue the music.